it's your boy Young I give him that thing. Control like a state, Panchi America. Banyi dual, Banaban. Control like a state, Panchi America. Banyi dual, Banaban. Walk on the lake, Kankara, what on a watching. Oga, level lake, Gear, Pow, Garay Lake. Panda with Yay, Panchi America. Panya, Dwalabano, Chingatonga, Pandon, could you ever buy a check? Pagupana, you, Yabi, Panchi America, Panji Dual, Panapan Pantalek.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are tuning in today here in Australia. It's 29th of November, and still early morning hours in Africa. We welcome all of you into this wonderful interview coming up with our guest, Akec Awuolic, former Managing Director of SUDD Institute. We requested all of you to share this with all your colleagues. Share the video with you, with my co-host Peter Kane. Greet the people before we bring up our guest.
Thank you, Brother Isaac, and to all our fans, viewers. Welcome to Lake State Media. First time I have appeared in the first place on the video, so I'm helping a little bit, but I would love you guys to share, like, sum up, and if things feel like you don't like them, please inbox us, let us know. Next time we'll do better. Other than that, welcome, have fun, share your opinions. It doesn't matter what it is. And this is our base. Thank you, Ethan.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter Kane. And our guest, Mr. Akec Awuolic. Welcome, Lake State Media, once again. We are happy to have you this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever our viewers are tuning in to watch this show. Akec Awuolic, I'll give you just 30 seconds to greet people. Introduce yourself in that 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Brother Isaac. It's a pleasure. And Peter, it's a pleasure to be back at the Lake State Media. You guys are doing a great job keeping our people informed at home and in diaspora about current affairs of South Sudan. So I'm delighted to be here and to share my views on current events. And thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Abram, for accepting our invitation and be part of to come and answer some few questions. The interview, the topic that we are interested in is the resignation letter that you have submitted in. That's what has triggered us to call you. And that resignation from your portfolio that as a managing director of SUDD Institute, I quite remember in August, Pauline was asking you to resign, and that thing didn't happen until here in November. The question is, what was holding you back in all these 3 months, and what triggered you to submit in your resignation today? This is the first question to you.
Thank you very much. I think that is a fair and legitimate question, and I appreciate it very much. Well, what held me back was that, first of all, the SUDD Institute was shut down, and there was an investigation going on, and some of my colleagues were under threat. And so, as a leader of that organization, uh, it would have been misguided for me to resign while the organization is still closed. It would look as if I was running away from the organization because of the trouble that it was in, and it would also look as if I have given up on that role under duress, under pressure from the government. And so my position at that time was that, which I notified Professor Pauline and the members of the board, that it would be bad for me to resign under the circumstances that were there. That the organization was shut down, the accounts were frozen, and the government was threatening our colleagues to be arrested. And so, if the investigation was not over and the organization was not open, later on, and then I resigned, and later on, they are found to have been linked to some activities that I was involved in, and I'm already not there. Who is going to speak for them? So that was the basis. That's why I delayed my resignation, and because I only resigned now because the SUDD Institute has been reopened formally to function. And so, if I had resigned at that time and the organization was shut down and it's not operational, the board could not even meet to elect a new leader. And so, it would have been unuseful action on my side. But now that the institute has been reopened and the pressure has been lifted off our colleagues, and I don't see any threat of any one of them going to jail, and therefore the need for me to speak for them, I see that it is fitting now. I was not going to run the SUDD Institute while also being actively opposed to the government. The rules of the SUDD Institute would not allow me to do that. And so that's why I have to resign now. And I'm fully now a member of the People's Coalition for Civil Action. And that is where I will dedicate most of my time. So thank you very much. So it was a deliberate decision on my side, which I thought was the right thing to do, not to run away from the organization at a time when it was in trouble. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. The SUDD Institute, it was a research center in the civil organization, and we other the viewers thought it has paved your way to lead PCCA as a people coalition. So the connection of this, when you resign from there, will it not affect your party or the organization that you are leading now, PCCA? Will it not affect?
Well, it can affect it, but only positively. It means that now I have a responsibility to make sure that the PCCA is running well. And I don't have a divided attention of having to worry about my colleagues back in Juba and whether they will be arrested or they will not have jobs. So I was worried about that, and now that I have resigned and I'm no longer worried about them, I'll put more focus on the work that I'm doing now with the PCCA, and therefore the impact will be a positive impact.
Okay. And another thing, today, day 29 of November, we heard that there will be a public uprising or a strike that will happen in South Sudan. led by PCCA. Is that correct? Is going to happen or not?
We have actually issued a public notice on the 27th that we are postponing that, we are pushing that back, partly because I am here on a mission. Some of my colleagues are here on a mission with me. And also, we want to ensure that the security measures aim at protecting civilians are fully realized. And so, for those two reasons, we have pushed it back, and we will announce a new date. So there is no. So we are not going to ask our supporters to go out for protest tomorrow, Juba time. Well, it's when they wake up.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So we have postponed that. We have pushed that. We'll issue a new date.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I will give the microphone to my brother, Peter Kane. If he has something to ask, he can go. Okay. Peter.
Thank you, Brother Isaacs. And uh, guys, share the video. And also, as always, we recommend if you have your question, make sure you write it down on the comment section and we'll be able to ask. Now, my next question for Abram. So, how long are you guys going to be on the mission before you guys go back on the ground and continue with what you're doing?
Very soon. So in maybe a week or two, we'll be back to the base, and then we'll continue to do our mission.
Okay. My second question will go to current events. What is the assessment of CCPA with the governor's um,
Forum.
setting forum?
Well, the governors forum is an excellent forum where the people who have been assigned to lead various parts of South Sudan come together to share their perspective. And in our assessment, we think that the governors have spoken candidly about events happening in their locations, and they have asked important questions. And we think that this is the level of candidness that we have had also in the national dialogue. Only problem is nobody cares or nobody listens to those statements, and therefore the governors forum, which is largely supported by UNDP, will end and the resolutions will be left in Juba and nothing will be seen of them. So that is the unfortunate reality of the situation in South Sudan. Good things are said. People actually come up with very good plans, but there is no political will in Juba to get anything done. And so that is the only sad part of that. But otherwise, we were impressed with the forum, and some of the remarkable statements that were made only confirm our concerns. They only confirm the statements that we have been making in the media, that the country has collapsed, the ruling party is not in charge, and the president is unwilling to move the country forward. He is actually moving the country backward. And so if your governors come and indict you and your government in the manner they have done in Juba, then it doesn't really make sense why you would be pursuing people like us. That's exactly what we are saying, that things are not working. They are not given the resources they need to run the country and to run the states. And whenever they come up with reports of challenges that are facing them, nobody takes them over. And so that is what I can say. The conference went well. The governors have outlined clearly what the challenges are, but our only fear is that it, the forum was as good as it was taking place, but as soon as it ended, that's the end of it. There is nothing more to be expected.
Okay. And the next follow would be with the now the legislators have their setting. It has been over a couple months, if not, it's not probably not a year yet since they were appointed. What have they done as a lawmakers in a time of peace and also the regulation in the country?
Well, I can tell you that it would be I would be dishonest if I were to say there is a legislature in South Sudan. We only have a group of people who sit in a tent, uh, claiming to be legislators, but they are not independent. So they are fed what law they should pass, and they cannot object, and they cannot propose their own laws. So they wait for the government to bring the laws to them, and then they pass them. And so technically, we whether it is working or it is not working, it doesn't make any difference. That is the fact of the matter. And so the legislators, of course, if they were important to the government, they should have been the first to be sworn in before you have any government, because the work of the legislators is to actually vet the appointees of the president. But since they don't matter, that's why the government was formed in March, in February 2020, and it took until the middle of until May for the parliament to be appointed, and it was not until if we didn't set the 30th of August as a national awakening day, they would not have been sworn in by now. They were only sworn in on the 30th of August. And so technically, there are some important laws that they are supposed to pass that include incorporating the peace agreement into the constitution, and then they have to review the number of laws that have been identified by the peace agreement. But as far as we are concerned, it doesn't matter whether you have a parliament or you don't have a parliament. It doesn't make any impact on policy in South Sudan. And you can see also with the states. Some states have been operating for over a year without parliaments. So you technically have to begin to wonder what government would function without a legislature if it is truly a government that has independent branches. So what law or what legal basis has the government been operating without the legislature? So in my view, it is simply a question of adding into the payroll bill to have those members of parliament. And I'm not saying they are not worthy to be members of parliament. They want to do the right thing, and they are highly educated people. They are patriotic, but the leadership would not allow them to do what they are supposed to do. The speaker, for example, was supposed to be elected by those MPs, but the president came and called them and said, "Listen, here is your speaker. Here you go." And and the speaker obviously will just do what the president tells her. So really, on the question of parliament in South Sudan, let us not kid ourselves. There is no parliament. There is the president, and then an extension of the president, or people who are trying to appear to be MPs, but their work is totally irrelevant now.
As a part of, you were a part of National Dialogue Secretariat. What was the outcome of that national dialogue? Because it was supported 99% of Junubin, at least to have a conversation on how to move forward. What was the outcome, and what have been done from that outcome at this point?
There were many outcomes. So the critical questions were four. Number one, how do we govern ourselves as the people of South Sudan? And people have said we need a democratic system, we need a presidential system with where people are elected for 2 terms, and we need a federal system. So, for example, that is one of the issues that was discussed, and that issue has been resolved. There are resolutions about that. The second question is how do we organize our security so that it can serve the purpose of an independent country? And there have been a lot of proposals and resolutions on that. And the third question is how do we share our resources fairly so that we can have developmental outcomes that are um, equitable, that all parts of South Sudan are able to share in the wealth that has been created in the country. There are proposals about that, largely on the economy. And then lastly is the social cohesion. How do we live together as ordinary people? How do we relate to one another? There have been resolutions to that. But then a broader question was asked: what caused all these problems in South Sudan? And the response to that question was that there has been a failure of leadership. It is the leadership that has failed us. And so then another question was asked: how do you deal with that failure of leadership? And the report and the recommendation of the people of South Sudan was that the two leaders that have been fighting over power, President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar, if we were to move forward as a country, they should step aside. So that was the recommendation of the national dialogue. And so then, out of the big volume of recommendations, the president went and took that recommendation, which asked him and Dr. Riek Machar to step aside and said it is an insult to him, and therefore the whole national dialogue is invalid. It has been so he's throw it out. So that's what I can tell you. So people of South Sudan talked for 4 years, discussing very difficult issues, and reach an agreement on them, only for one man to come and throw it in a trash. That is one of the reasons why I'm speaking out. We should not have a country where only one person determines the fate of the whole country. That is not acceptable. And so the people of South Sudan are very bitter that their resolutions, their dialogue, has been thrown out by the president because of one recommendation. So that's what I can tell you about the outcome of the national dialogue.
Hmm.
Well, this is interesting because the public never know that actual national dialogue was thrown out because it was the only hope that we all have as a South Sudanese. Uh,
Yeah.
that's that's why we actually want to educate our people. Sometimes we crack our mind and get mad at each other, but the fact is we need to talk. Brother Isaacs,
Yeah. Thank you, Peter.
I'll turn it to you for a
Yeah.
moment, and
All
I
right.
will.
Yeah, I got some few question also to ask, and then I will give it back to you. Mr. Abraham Awolic, because people are talking about this decrease and the appointment that the president is doing. For example, you have mentioned something election instead to allow the MPs to elect their speaker or to choose. He just decreed in, and there is another group who is identified as JCE. JCE, can you explain to the world what is their work? Do they have a connection with the president? Do they have connection in the government? Are they part of and parcel of this uh, problems happening in the country. I need you to explain this broadly to our audience who are watching you now.
Well, it would be better if you get one of the members of the JCE, they can better explain. But from where I sit, from my perspective, and I have interacted with them,
Hmm.
some of them are government officials, they are MPs, others are former government officials who have retired, and they are a group of people, and they talk about events happening in the country, and obviously they are what they call interest group. If you can say so, they are interest group. They are interested in a select set of policies that they like to see happening in South Sudan. And as you know, with any interest group, they like to influence the leadership, and so they try to engage the president and other senior government officials with the intention to influence the system to implement some of their policy interests or policy objectives. Uh, I think early on there was an element of some of their uh, recommendations were considered,
Hmm.
but as time goes, the relationship between President Kiir and the JC
Yes. Hmm.
has not been that great. So I don't think they still have any influence at all. They are like everybody else. Some of the SPLM leaders, they are no longer able to influence the president. The president has got other people who are able to influence him. So they probably must have been influential in the beginning when they started, but with time, I think they became also concerned about what the president was doing to the country, and they became very critical. And I think they have been kind of phased out within the circle of the president, if they were ever in the circle.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. Just got one more question to you as well. Because we have been listening to the indigenous or the citizen in Equatoria, the Equatorians, they have been talking about the land grabbing happening in Equatoria. As a leader of PCCA, what is your response, and can you explain to us exactly what is happening about the land grabbing and the cattle keeping in the areas which they were not supposed to be kept there? Can you explain this to us, please? What
Well,
is your
I can tell
side?
you that yes, there are two parts to the land grabbing issue. First of all, Juba as a metropolitan area is growing very fast, and it has consumed many villages, Bari villages that used to exist. It has consumed them. They have become part of Juba. People are coming into the capital city to live and to work and to find opportunities. And so there are no housings. People have not built a lot of houses in Juba. So even if you want to rent, you may not be able to get a place to rent. So you have to kind of find a place to settle and to build your makeshift shelter. Um, so that has led to expansion of the city. Now the challenge is this: uh, the land in the city, the policy is not so clear.
Hmm.
Um, if 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 our government was proactive or originally, we could have asked the Central Equatorial State and the and Bari people to give us a space for the capital and to demarcate the boundaries of the capital. Say on the east side, we will go for 25 kilometers, another 25 kilometers to the south, to the north, another 25 kilometers to the south, another 25 kilometers to the east and to the west, so that you have a square, a number of square miles or square kilometers.
Hmm.
and now that place is now available for the capital city, and then you gazette that land and you appoint an authority to manage that land. Anything outside that is a body land. It cannot be touched. Only the body can give it to anyone, but no one else. And there could have been an agreement between the state government and the national government, so that the state government should relocate outside this square mileage, so that it is outside the national capital.
Hmm.
And then now you can either agree with the municipality or a local government to now administer that land, so that anybody who needs it, there are rules. You are told if you need a plot, you need to go to A, to B, and C, and you have to have this qualification and so forth. We have not done that. So people just came in and they find a place, and some people settle. And then there are others who claim to be land authorities. They would come and say, okay, if you need land, come this way. And they take their equipments and they begin to measure plots and land and give it to people and ask people to pay, when in fact they are not authorized. And so you settle there, and later on the government comes and say, you are settled here illegally. So that is in the city, and that is in town, and it could be happening in Yei. It is happening in Numili and in Torit. It is also happening in Bor and Yerul and Rumbek, all over South Sudan. So we don't have an effective land policy yet. But
Okay.
the major concern among the Equatorians is the fact that cattle herders from Lake State and from Jonglei and even Central Equatoria have moved farther south than usual to graze. For example, in the past, it was around Juba, between Juba and Mundari lands, where the cattle herders would settle. But they would never go all the way to Kajokeji and to Lanya and to other locations. So there are two problems that are driving that. One is there is a lot of flooding right now in Jonglei. So you really have no place to keep your cows. If there are patches of land, they are not safe. So people have to move out of that. And they have moved to either lakes or to Central Equatoria. Those are the places that are safe. They cannot move eastward because they are afraid of their cattle being raided. Now, the problem is that they came so many, there are many of them. There are so many cows and many young people, and they are heavily armed. And they would enter these areas without negotiation with the local people. And so some people in the Equatoria believe that this is a strategy. They are trying to grab their land. So this is their fear, that these people are moving away from their places and they are coming to occupy equatorial land, and they are heavily armed. You cannot chase them away easily. They will fight you. So that is the fear that is the second element of this. And there have been instances where people have actually had a fight. So there is a basis for them to fear. But whether the intention of those who are coming with the cows is to settle there and to grab land, I'm not able to independently verify that. The cattle keepers do claim that they are there to protect their cows, and when these conditions are okay for them in their home areas, they will return. But some people have stayed there for over 10 years now, and so the people of Equatoria, especially Central Equatoria and Eastern Equatoria, have become very concerned that maybe these people will never go back, and they are not comfortable with that. So there is a real need for dialogue among those people, so that their intentions are clarified, and so that the threats that the local people feel is ameliorated. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah, that's right. You answer it. Your side is really clear, and thank you so much for that. Before I give it back to Peter, I just got one more follow-up question that I would like to throw in. Um, as the civilians, especially pastoralists, those who just come with their cattle, and as you have mentioned it, they are well armed. Civilian in South Sudan, they are all arms with the heavy ammunition that even the local police station they don't have such weapons, and there are some regulation rules because I do listen also into the some medias those who are concerned like Equatorian medias. I watch their shows. They said if they get somebody with a danga or a machete or anything, the government can stop them and and say that you should not carry all these things. And there are people who are carrying PKM and AK-47 and these heavy artilleries, and they are cattle keepers. And they went far where they can just go and keep their cattle for while they when the people used to migrate with the cows, it's supposed to be seasoned. And if that season is over, you return back. But now, others, they just move with their cows and they stay there for long. They are not returning back and they settle there. They look like they're settling. That's a part of land grabbing. And these people, they are pure civilians and they are well armed. When other people are talking, especially in leg state of disarmament for this of civilians, it does happen. Sometimes you can see all heap of guns are being taken from the hand of the civilian, but in the few weeks, it will come back again into their hands. Can you tell us what is going on here when you disarm and you arm, disarm, rearm? Is that the game going on, or there is another loop or a leak that in the store where we store the gun disarmed, they open it again and take it back to these people? Can you talk about that?
Well, thank you very much, my brother. Those are, yeah, indeed, you have a good understanding of the issue. Yeah, I think in the old days, in traditionally, if you
Mm.
move to into someone's territory with your cows,
Yeah.
you do so with the permission,
Yes.
and they have to inspect whether your cows have any disease or anything like that before they allow
Uh-huh.
you.
Yeah. Mm.
And so my assumption is that if the cattle owners are going into the equatorial land without prior arrangement, then the fear of Equatorians is justified. That okay, these people are just coming in; they have not talked to us, and they are heavily armed. So are they here to steal our land?
Mm.
Now, if they are going there and they reach out to the chiefs, because that's how we work as a society.
Yes. Yes.
You go to the chief of that particular area and you say, we have a problem back home. Could you allow us to stay here? And where would be the best place for us to stay without causing too much disruption to the normal life? I think if that is there, I think there would be there would have been some understanding. But if there is no such dialogue that happens, then those people who are afraid that their land is being taken uh, are possibly justified. So there is a need for us to have dialogue on that issue, and for the cattle keepers to go to the territory. We know what is chasing them in back home. There is a lot of flooding and there is disease, and they don't want their animals to be wiped out. That is their means of survival. So that is given. We know what is chasing people there. Insecurity also is chasing people there because Jonglei has been a center of high tensions and conflict for many years since independence. And so we don't wonder why people in Jonglei or in Jonglei in particular would want to move out of Jonglei. In fact, many of them had moved to Lake State only to find that in lakes, especially in the southern part, southeastern part of lakes, where they went, there was a lot of disease. And then there was a possibility that their cattle could be looted. So then they moved southward. They moved south into Equatoria. And so really there is a reason they have to move. It is not that they intend to move away and occupy the land, but they want to preserve their cattle. But their attitude and and their engagement with the local communities probably is the basis of fear. Another element that we may not rule out is that the political atmosphere in the country is very divisive, and so it is very quick to politicize this natural occurrence, this natural conflict between the farmers and the cattle keepers. It can easily be politicized. For example, it has been mentioned that it is actually the government that armed these civilians with the intention of occupying the equatorial land. There may be some merit to that, but it is not entirely true. So, what I know about the cattle keepers with their guns is that the disarmament policy in South Sudan has been utterly misguided. The policy is terrible. We have failed so many times trying to carry out disarmament simply because we don't study. My advice to the former Minister of Interior when I was invited to give advice on the disarmament, I said that the first thing you need to do is to study, first of all, where the weapons come from, and then the security dilemma facing communities. If they give
Yes.
up their weapons, what is their security? So you need to study those dynamics, and then now with that information, which must be done across the country, with that information, you come back now and you design a policy. And before you design a policy, you need a legislation that that defines certain things. Who should have a gun? Who should not have a gun? What kind of a gun should somebody have? And what process should they take in order to own a gun? So you need to have clearly spell out rules on that. And now, once you have a law that regulate who should own a gun and who should not, and what kind of guns should be owned by civilians, and what kinds of guns should not be owned by civilians, now you have a basis to go out there and do the disarmament. And then you ask yourself a question: do I do forceful disarmament? Do I do voluntary disarmament? Or do I do incentivize economically driven demobilization? And where do I start demobilization? So the way it works is this. So if you start disarmament in lakes, then the guys from lakes will go to the Mundari area and sell their guns and get cows. So then the Mundari will have those guns. Now, when the disarmament comes now to Mundari, then they go back and sell the guns to the guys in lakes. And so really the guns don't go. It's only a few guns that go.
Yeah.
And also, once these guns are collected, usually the government keep them in the stores. And you have a lot of soldiers and military leaders who are not paid. So when things get tough, they begin to sell these guns slowly back to the community in order to earn a living. So really, the policy of disarmament is misguided in South Sudan, and it will never succeed. You have to take time to study it, and you have to now, based on the knowledge generated from research, you can now make a policy, and now you know how to get the guns out of civilians' hands and what strategy to use, and you need
Okay.
international support for that. So the guns are circulating among civilians, and also the military is giving the guns to the civilians because of the economic hardships.
All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your prospective views, and as a leader of PCCA, and how you see how to change these things. I have some few questions. Peter, give me a moment. Let me just complete this question, and then I will give microphone back to you. Sorry for that. Uh, since PCCA formation, you have never liaised with other South Sudanese opposition groups whose agenda is to topple or to let the current government fall. Are you capable of removing failed leaders alone when it is supposed to be a shared responsibility? That's the question to you.
Well,
Direct. Yeah.
well, that's a good question. Obviously, anything public should never be done by an individual or a group of individuals. It has to be a widespread activity.
Hmm.
Uh, because the country is too large, the society has a lot of different views and different formation. So you really need a lot of people, a wide sector of society, to be on the same page in order for you to effect change. And so, as far as PCCA is concerned, we want to do this work in a collaboration with other organizations. And if you notice, in September, uh, we actually in August we had a meeting with a number of organizations that are working on the same agenda,
Hmm.
among which the Red Card Movement is one, and the United Citizens for Peace for Change, and other organizations. And we had a communique uh, to work together. And so we are still doing this, building this alliance, trying to know each other, get to trust one another, and and realize the fact that uh, public policy is a very complicated process, and you need a large number of people to be on the same page to be
Hmm.
able to tilt the weight in favor of change. And so the PCCA definitely is open to engaging other organizations that are working on this. They don't necessarily have to join the PCCA, but we can work together, we can collaborate, and they can keep their identity. But in the long run, uh, we really have no any other agenda other than the agenda of changing South Sudan from the current state of affairs to a new day. And if there is anyone willing to do that, why not work with them? That's what
That's
I
good.
think.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Another question to put in is PCCA a project of one of the key figures in the government that you are only establishing a platform, especially by sensitizing the international community on the smooth perception of what will transpire?
Right. We have heard that conspiracy theory, which is an insult to me and to my colleagues. We are leaders in our own right, and we don't need a patron. We
Hmm.
don't need somebody who is a patron to send us around to speak for him or her. We are leaders in our own right, and we are speaking on our own right as people of South Sudan who feel that the current system has failed us, and therefore there is a need to change that. But we are not a project of anyone. We are a
Hmm.
project of the people of South Sudan.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. As you mentioned before, that you have aboard the strike that's supposed to take place later on in daytime South Sudan, day 29. You just need to reschedule this. In case citizens accept to protest on your instruction via media, social media, and it happened also that in Cuba or anywhere in the country, and you are not with them and as an instructor, how patriotic would that be on your part? How would you think or feel these the people that you instructed to go on the street, give pressure to the government, and you are not there?
If you remember, when we were in the bush, the people of Sudan had intifada twice,
Mm.
and the first one was when they got rid of Nimeri in 1985. John Gar- John Garang was asking and supporting people to go out and topple the Nimeri regime. He didn't have to be there because he was fighting for them, and it didn't mean that he was not patriotic. The same thing when the Sadiq Al Mahdi government
Mm.
uh, failed to implement the Kokadam agreement.
Yes, yeah, Cockadam
He,
1 and 2. Yes.
yes, he had called for another intifada,
Mm.
which was taken advantage of when Omar al Bashir staged a coup with Al Trabi.
Mm.
And so my what the people of South Sudan are asking me to do is to stay, is to continue to be their voice. And so I am not afraid at all to fly to Juba tomorrow, uh, and face whatever there is, and face anyone, including President Salva Kiir himself. I'm not afraid of anyone.
All right.
But the fear of the people of South Sudan is that I will be put in jail just like our colleague Kwela Agurikwel and be silent. And so if my colleague, myself and my colleague Raja Mohandes and other
Mm.
colleagues, if we are put in jail, who is going to speak for the people of South Sudan? And you need somebody to speak to mobilize the people. And so I think the best service I would have to do for the people of South Sudan, if in case I don't come to the protest, is to speak for them and to speak for those who will be arrested. But we have many leaders. I'm not the only leader of the PCCA. We have many leaders who are on the ground who will be able to address the people. And who knows? Maybe after I finish my mission, I'll go back and I will be
Okay.
there on the day of the protest. So
All
that
right.
is always a possibility. But I don't want people to get the impression and the propaganda that if you are not inside the country, you are not patriotic, and therefore you are not supposed to speak up. That is a lie, and that is what the government wants you to believe. But the truth of the matter is, you have to speak out and alert people and raise awareness and challenge the government. And in order for you to do that more effectively, you have to be out of jail, and that is what we are trying to do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Abram. I just the last will be the last question for me anyway. But the people they have a feeling that questions that you have that finally answered now that doesn't need you to be on ground with the people is you are not a patriotic. That's not the case. But in case if it happened because you have instructed the people to go out and strike, and if the regime falls, how can you manage to control it remotely, or do you have insiders that would be maintaining the law and order in case of those eventuality? These are the questions that were running in the mind of the people, because we can see the the key leaders who are on the ground working along with the civilian that you have instructed to go for a strike.
Well, I can tell you that the by the time the regime falls,
Yeah.
we would be on the ground. It is because the process of protest and popular uprising is a process. It doesn't happen in one day. And so, if we are gaining ground and we are able to have thousands of people on the street, what fear would we have then? I can fly to Juba and
Mm.
ask the supporters, the people of South Sudan, to march to the airport and take me to John Garang Mausoleum, and we could have a conversation right there. I don't fear doing that, and so what we are doing now, and the reason why we have to be out, me in particular, is to mobilize people, create awareness, tell them what is happening in the country, get them to be uh, upbeat and be able to brave it out and come out. But once they are there, I will be among them. I will not wait until everything is finished and then I will show up. No. If I expect that I'm going to learn in Juba and 100,000 people are going to come to the streets at the airport to welcome me, why would I fear anybody arresting me? That would not happen, because those people will protect me, and if I were to be arrested, they will make life miserable for anyone who would arrest me. So by that time, if we have those numbers, which is what we are working on now, we are mobilizing, we will come in. We will come in a broad daylight, and there is nothing they can do.
All right. Thank you so much. Peter Keynes, sorry for taking time. And also, we have our viewers, hundreds plus people who are watching this show, and some of them they throw in some question. I will pick one question here from Panther Tuch Dut. He said that Mr. Speaker is asking you, Dr. Abram. He said, who do you believe to lead the country comes next election? Any potential leader you have in mind? May I ask that question? That's what he has written.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what I can tell him is that we should never make a mistake of rushing to identify a leader. We can all be selfish and say it is me or it is that. But the truth of the matter is leadership is very, very important. And what I can say is that the next leader should not be handpicked by anyone or any small group of people. The next leader should be identified through a rigorous process. And we all have to agree as a people of South Sudan that this person, this woman here or this man is the right person to lead South Sudan. The country is in deep crisis, crisis of economic crisis of corruption, crisis of failed leadership, failed institutions. So you really need a leader that is given the mandate by the people. And so what we need to do collectively is to rise up, challenge the current state, and at the end of it, before we could have a leader, we really need to enter into a political dialogue. All the political parties, we have to have a political dialogue to set up the rules of the game. How do we play politics in South Sudan? That is devoid of ethnicity, that is devoid of all sorts of divisions. But people can only be able to be divided on ideological basis or on ideas. If we can do that, then that process itself, even for the PCCA in our case, we have not sat down and say, okay, Abraham Awuolic, you are the leader of the PCCA, or Rajab Mandis, or anybody else. We are simply saying we cannot do that. We are all leaders in our own right, and we will speak out. But we have to wait for the people of South Sudan to mobilize in their large numbers. And when we have that number of people who are ready to fight along with us, that's when we'll sit down together to identify our leader, the leader of the PCCA. We don't want that to be construed as the leader of South Sudan. Those are two different things. And so we think that you need an open and inclusive, dialogue-oriented process to identify the next leader. We should not rush.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your answers to my questions. All my questions are end up here. I will throw the microphone to my brother, Peter Kenyi. If he has something to ask, you can put in, and also we will go for the closing remarks. Peter, welcome. Unmute yourself, Mike.
Sorry, brother. Thank you, brother Isaac. You did a wonderful job. I have a network problem already, so thank you for doing that. I have um, I have not more than two questions for Adam.
I don't hear you well, Peter.
Come closer to the microphone. We can't hear you well.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I might have a question or two, and that particular goes to there, there is another issue that has been going on where people question a lot about um, Tudukil as one of the person having an influence, particularly within the decision making after JCA. What impact is, because it's one of the first, because those who believe as the members of SPLM, they always said, oh, the SPLM has been hijacked by the Khartoumers. So can, what is the assessment of the CCPA or you as an individual on that basis of argument?
Well, I can tell you, yes, the assertion that the SPLM has been hijacked is correct, and I can attest to that. And it is unfortunate, but I have to tell the listeners that I am a supporter of the SPLM. I grew up SPLM, and I have SPLM in my DNA. But the unfortunate thing is that there is no SPLM. We really have SPLM is dead. President Kiir has killed the SPLM, and so those who are shouting SPLM, oh yeah, sorry man, there is no SPLM. SPLM has been long dead. What we have there is a picture of the SPLM, but not the real SPLM. The leaders of SPLM, the political bureau is not functioning. The National Liberation Council has never met, and so it is President Kiir and Tudkew and those that Tudkew like who are now running South Sudan. And so, as much as you love your SPLM to be in charge, it is not. And so really, the country has been, I would not even say it has been hijacked, because with a hijack, you really have to struggle to try to capture the plane or the car, and you force the people who own the car out, or you hold them hostage. In our case, it is our driver who actually went to the NCP and gave the car voluntarily to the NCP. And so it is not a hijack, it is a giveaway. So President Kiir has given the SPLM away. And the SPLM is not in charge. If anyone challenges this idea, let them come here to Lake State Media and we are going to debate it. Because how do you, a ruling party is a party that makes policies and then give it to the government for the government to implement. And it is actually the party that decides who among its cadres would be appointed as ministers or governors and so forth. SPLM doesn't do that. SPLM watches the decrees of the president on the television just like any one of us. They would never have prior knowledge, and so in all honesty, I challenge anyone in the SPLM who believe that the SPLM is in charge of the country to come to Lake State Media and we have a debate. And I could ask them how they are in charge of they can then tell the people of South Sudan how they are in charge. I know that they are not in charge. It is President Kiir and Turkel and few others who make decisions. Whereas those of James Wani Iga, those of Daniel Awet, Kwalmanyang, Mang Poch, who are members of the political bureau, they don't decide. They are not part of the decision-making process as we speak. So that is so. I think the term hijack is is very generous. It is President Kiir who took the SPLM, drove it to the compound of the NCP, and handed it over. Thank you very much.
Okay. One more question. Particularly, people don't understand the difference between
I
rebellion.
still don't hear you well.
Okay. I said the last question. This is going to be my last question. Our people don't understand the difference between rebellion, uh, peaceful protest, call for protest. The good example, we have a governor, not the governor, but the former mayor of the Juba.
Yes.
When CCP called for a protest, those who closed their shop were fined for not going to work and so forth. When he was relieved a couple of days ago, we see one and their person on the street protesting on behalf of people of Juba saying, oh, it's a good person. What would you tell those people at this point and the mayor? There is nothing wrong than saying you are not doing a better job. You either better do it well or get out of the way.
Right.
Is it a crime? What kind of crime are you breaking? Or is it your absolutely constitutional giving right and a human right?
Right. So let me be clear. Human beings, the way they function, even in their houses, is that you either accept something or you say no to something. You tell your children to go to sleep early, they will say, no, that is too early. That is a form of a protest.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. So this is as simple as that. And so we are designed that way as human beings. If we like something, we say yes. If we don't like something, we say no. And so it should be clear to our people that when somebody says no to something that they believe is wrong, there is nothing wrong with that. It is actually the way society functions. So the idea that somebody who disagrees with the decisions of the government or who talks about the weaknesses of the government somehow is a bad person or is a rebel is misguided. Rebelling against a wrong decision or a wrong policy is not. There is nothing wrong with that. It is when people take up arms and kill innocent people as a form of protest. That is the type of protest that should be condemned. And so when we are speaking out here as members of the PPCA, and anyone else who would do that, for example, that lone protester who wanted, and many people actually protested online. They rebel against the decision of the governor online by saying no, the mayor should not be removed. That's exactly what we are doing right now as members of the PCCA. We are simply saying that our president and his deputy, Dr. Riek Machar, have been using violence as a way of perpetuating their rule. And that violence has killed so many of our people and is not able to move the country forward. If they are not changing, let them go. And we bring in new people. Now, if you are a supporter of President Kiir, we don't stop you from saying, no, the president should stay because he has done these good things. And we could have a debate. That's what civilized people do. And so it should be clear on the minds of the people of South Sudan that rebellion or protest is not a bad thing. After all, our president has done it. He protested against the SPLM and actually endorsed the NCP, and that's why he's working with the NCP. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we talking about people who have no power, who are simply saying the decisions of the government are harmful to our citizens? And we therefore need a better government, a government that will serve the interests of the ordinary people of South Sudan. That's what we are saying. And so we have no issue with people who disagree with us. It is their entitlement. They are right to disagree with us. The only people we disagree with are people who say that just because we have disagreed with the government that we are bad. No, we are not. We are patriotic citizens, and we are people who wish all the best for the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you.
Okay. I have two. One will actually come from the viewers. Is
And I have 5
coming
minutes to go.
Uh, it's it's coming from Johnson McQuay, and I'll put it on the screen. We say, Dr. Awuolic, how can you bring all these political parties to work collaboratively, which are so divided?
Well, I think that our message of unity is clear, and we have already been, people have reached out to us, people from those other parties, including those who are armed. They reach out to us and say, your message of unity is appealing to us, and we appreciate it very much. And we want to work in collaboration with you. What we are saying is that absolutely, we would be happy to work with those parties as long as they agree to embrace nonviolent action. So one of the ways in which we will work together is that with time, we will organize consultative meetings with those people and share ideas how best South Sudan can be transitioned into permanent peace and security. And once we have some agreement on those things, then we will pursue those objectives together. And so it is our responsibility as PCCA and the responsibility of those parties to pull the people of South Sudan together. These divisions have been the best tool by of President Salva Kiir Mayardit to keep himself in power. So it is incumbent upon us to forego all those divisions and embrace the message of unity and mobilize our people to realize their power and their rights. And the question of leadership obviously is something that we will settle once we have achieved the change that is needed. So there would be no conflict here. If their interest is to change the system, and our interest is to change the system, then it should follow that we will find a common ground where we can work together. Thank you very much.
Okay, one more question from the viewers as well. Question come from Agarma Book. How does the CCP communicate with South Sudanese people about this change?
Excellent. Yes, communication is a challenge for us, but one way we are communicating is that we have created cells. We have created cells in various parts of the country, in the states, in the counties, and we pass our message to them, to the cells, which they then pass to people that they communicate with. Another way we try to communicate is to reach out to people through the social media, like I'm doing now, and people can share this message. They can analyze this message, and if they are persuaded, then they have to take action and reach out to us so that we can engage. And so we are working on more tools to improve our communication so that those who communicate with us are safe, that they are not endangered by our communication with them. So we are working on, there are we are mobilizing resources now to improve our communication capability. But for now, we are using social media, we are using oral communication, and we are using posters to spread our message. And of course, the regular media, the newspapers and the radios.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
One more
you.
question, and one of my questions is also being asked by the viewers as well. That would be my last question. Another question come from Samuel Awaniding. Mr.
Awanding.
Abraham, uh, Mr. Abraham, how are you overcoming this notorious government that hold the power on their end and you guys have no power? Um, and now I will have a last question and hand it to Abraham.
All right. Well, thank you very much. There is no power greater than the power of people. So President Salva Kiir has power of the gun, but he has lost legitimacy and he has lost the power of the people. And so our objective here is to mobilize the people of South Sudan, and that is our power. We have seen recently in Khartoum, when the military generals took power of the people actually came out and took their power back. And even though the prime minister has been reinstated, they are still unhappy, so they want more. So the power of the people always wins. And so the challenge we have is to get our message to the ordinary people of South Sudan. And if we have a message that is of great value to them, and they are able to support us, then we have more power than the notorious regime that you talk about. And they will have no chance to stand against us. So the only challenge we have now is our capacity to mobilize and our capacity to deliver a message of unity and a message of hope. Then the people of South Sudan will rise up, and the government will have nothing to do but to relinquish power to them. And that is
Okay.
our power. Thank you
My
very much.
last question, and is the one actual everybody is hating, is about election. I have two viewers comment on it, and after them it
Yeah,
will be my
Rajab has
last.
already answered that, but we need to also to bring it up. It's a good question. Simon Nabui has asked, do you believe in the election that President Salva Kiir said will take place in 2013? The answer came up from Rajab Mohandis already. I think has replied that there will be no election. Preparation are not being done for election. In fact, the schedule of the election is December 2022, according to the peace agreement. So, if you have anything that you can add, and under the response of Rajab Mohandis, you can just drop in to answer question of Abui.
Well,
Thank you very much.
before you answer that, so the whole thing, within the with the outcome of governors election was also one of the topics. Uh, I mean, within the
The
governors forum,
fifth, yeah,
uh,
governance forum.
election is also one of the hot topics. So, if the election is going to go on, what do you guys think will be the best way? If there is no election, what action is history taken? So
Right.
either government correct that or anybody that
Right. So thank you. Whether there will be elections in 2023, I would say no. There will be no elections in 2023. South Sudan is, in fact, if we are to have real elections that bring change, South Sudan is very far from it. In fact, I would say maybe it will take us 5 years to get to an election. And the reason is simple. First, you have many armies. Everybody has his own army. You go for an election in a unity state where my army is based, and you declare that I'm a loser. Are you kidding me? So really, the unification of the army is one critical ingredient that you need. But the unification of the army is superficial. It is not enough. You actually need a reconstruction of the security architecture in South Sudan, a national army that is detached completely from any personality or any party. Until you have that, don't talk to us about elections. Two, the current political landscape in South Sudan is so distorted that you cannot have meaningful election. The bitter divisions that have been created by the leaders of South Sudan, President Kiir, Dr. Riek Machar, and others, would not allow us to have free and fair elections. It would be a declaration of war if you have an election now in South Sudan and somebody loses. So it is very far away. Third, the entire population of Upper Nile is displaced both by war and by floods. Do you expect people to vote there in 2023? Will they be there? They will not be there. And the people of Equatoria, especially Central Equatoria and Eastern Equatoria, were displaced by war, a war of attrition that was created to keep people in power. And so they need to return home to vote. And because of that, even when they have returned, you still need to conduct census. You have to conduct census to know whether people have migrated from one area to another, and so that you can increase the number of districts in one location to another. So you then need a constitution, but it is not a constitution that can be negotiated using the current peace agreement. Some people are not there. It should be a constitutional process where all the political forces in the country are part of. And then a step that you have to take after that is you have to have a political dialogue to set up the political rules, the rules of political game. So once you have that, then you can now talk about election. And of course, it would be an election where President Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar should not participate. Because if they participate in any election, no matter how peacefully the preparations have been made, we are likely to get into conflict. So there will be no election in South Sudan. The president is not sincere. No one in South Sudan is sincere. Even the international partners who believe that there will be election in 2023 are not being sincere to the people of South Sudan. And we condemn that. People need to be truthful about the situation. Thank you very much.
I thank you so much, Akec Awuolic, and I think we have come to an end of the interview because the 5 minutes you requested before is over now. We apologize for that. We have taken longer than we expected. Okay. But the same, our viewers who are throwing in their question and their views, which you have answered, it is their right to ask you. Say whatever they need to ask you, and you answer them. So that is a great thing, and I appreciate all our viewers, those who drop in their questions, and I appreciate you. So I will give you just 1 minute to rehab, just to give a conclusion message to the people of the Republic of South Sudan in your conclusion, and then my co-host Peter Kane will also say at the last comments. And then I close the show later.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Isaac and Peter, for your wonderful interview. And I truly appreciate our citizens who are listening and who have sent in comments and questions. I appreciate that very much. Now, in my conclusion, I want to tell the people of South Sudan that our country is really in deep crisis. I wish you knew how deep a crisis our country is in. I know because I was there. I was close to power, and I know what is happening in the country. And I could have taken the easy road of kissing everybody's feet and getting an assignment, and possibly dip my hand into some money and live a good life. Pretending, obviously, everyone in South Sudan who claims to live a good life is pretending to be living a good life. There is no good life when millions of your fellow citizens are poor and you are the only rich man. And so the country is in crisis. The only way we can rescue our country is to take our country back. We have given it to our politicians to try to fix it for 16 years, and they have failed us. It would be a mistake on our side to continue to trust them. They have proven 16 years is a long time to conclude that they will never do the right thing. And the only way we can save ourselves is to rise up and to demand the return of power to the people of South Sudan so that we can elect our new leaders in a new environment. And so the choice is yours to rise up, or the choice is yours to put your heads down and suffer in silence. All those choices are all possible. But I have decided that lowering my head and suffer in silence is against my own interests as an individual and the interests of my children and that of other South Sudanese fellows. That's why I've decided to speak out. And so we want you to make the same conclusion. And the quicker you do that, the sooner we can fix our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Peter?
Thank you, Awuolic, for tuning in to give your opinion and how CCPA is running its things. The only thing we can do here on social media is make sure we educate people. It doesn't matter whether you support President Kiir, you support the government, you oppose the government, you rebel. Our job here is to make sure everybody has voice. If you are President Kiir supporter, if you are a government supporter, and you wish to repudiate Abraham and the CPA, you are welcome at any time. We are here for you, and that's our job as a media. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you
very much
to the viewers. And as always, here in Lake State Media, we are open. So thanks once again, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abraham, and thank you, Peter Kane. Thank you, our viewers, for your time you have taken and you be with us all this long. I appreciate that. Please subscribe the YouTube and like our page, and you share our videos with you. And don't forget today, later on, day 29, on Monday in Juba local time at 10, the resolutions and recommendation of the 5 days conference held in Juba by the governors and the administrators. The president is coming up. Let's watch carefully for that, and we may be having some analysis that we will discuss. Lagos State Media is working in hand with the UNDP. We will stream that live to you later on after 5 minutes. Sorry for that. After 5 hours, we will be having this show for all of you to watch. So thank you so much for being with us, and God bless you. We'll catch up later in that thing. Have a good day, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are tuning. God bless you all.
Thank you so much.
It's your boy, I'm giving that thing. Pancho legacy, Pancho legacy, Pancho America. Banyi dual, ban walk on your leg, Kankaro, what I know watching. Oga level leg, gear, wow, leg, Panda with ya, Pancho America. Panya dual, van, ching. Tongo pandon kujuera baya cheka Paku panda juru wabiabi Panchira America, Panji Dual, Panapan Pancha Legacy.